Good morning, all.
Morning.
Morning, everybody. Nice to see you there, Jan. How's Joy doing this morning?
Good morning, everyone. This is Nicole. Welcome back. We'll be getting started in a couple of minutes, and you may have seen a note pop up on your screen that the content is being streamed to a third party. That's because we're streaming this meeting on YouTube. So that's just to make you aware that whatever you say will be broadcast over the World Wide Web.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a good evening last night and ready to go and jump right into things this morning. Before we're going to call this meeting back to order, and we're going to check for our quorum, and then we'll be proceeding with resolution 6. So I'll turn it over to Nicole for quorum.
Good morning again, everyone. Starting with the board members, Walter Minot. Walter, he must be away from his desk. You're here? Okay. Melanie Allard.
Here.
Carmen Carrier.
Bon matin, I'm here, thank you.
Danielle Bergevin. Louis DeJager.
Present.
Patrick Harriet.
Morning.
Alan Lavallee.
Here.
Dean Gladue.
Present.
Deborah Fisher.
Present.
Rainey Gervais.
Present.
Susie Hooper.
Good morning.
Just going to go back in case Danielle Bergevin logged in. Not yet. Paulette Flamond.
Here.
Thank you. And on to the community presidents and vice presidents. Dylan Adam.
Here.
Tom Adams.
Good morning.
David Allard.
Good morning.
Rob Anderson.
Here.
Caitlin Bird.
I'm here. Good morning.
Joy Bremner.
Present.
Bernadette Chaboyer.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Alana Copeland.
Good morning.
Nicole Corson.
Present.
Jeff Crozier or Maddie Crozier.
Present.
Thank you. Welcome, Maddie. Betty Deck from Moccasin Flats. Anyone from Moccasin Flats? Hearing none. Sylvia DeRoche.
Good morning, present.
Cheryl Dodman.
Good morning.
Ross Everett.
I'm here for South Okanagan Métis, Nicole, Jamie.
Thank you, President Keith. Just
you.
let me write that in. Alicia Fernando. Morning, you're very faint, Alicia. Feb Goulet.
Morning.
Good morning. Tony Goulet. Anyone from North Caribou? No one. June Graham.
Good morning.
Anthony Creelo.
Good morning.
Good morning. Richard Lewis. Anyone from Cowichan Valley? I believe Jen is in today.
Yes, here.
Great. Tyler Massey.
Here.
Betty Ann MacDonnell.
Good morning.
Anya McVeigh. Anyone from Two Rivers? Okay, Val Pace? Or anyone from River of the Peace? Okay, Monica Parkinson? Or anyone from Métis Nation Columbia River?
Yeah, Travis Jobin.
Oh, you are here today. Great. Mert Servatius.
Good morning.
Lisa Shepherd.
Here.
Greg Stanwood.
I'm
Or-
here in his place.
Is this Zelda?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Joy Sundin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Marlene Swears.
Hello.
Pixie Wells.
Tapping in for the Valley Métis Association.
And Anthony Wingham.
Good morning.
Good morning. I see both you and your vice president are here. Who is representing your community today?
Callum will be.
Okay, great. Just so we have that clear, still only one vote. I see Chair Bergevin just popped in.
Morning. Sorry, I'm late. I couldn't find the Zoom link fast enough. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, everyone. So welcome. We're going to jump right in we've got the final two resolutions to deal with this morning. As per the changes that we had in our agenda yesterday, we're going to be dealing with resolution number 6 first. I will turn it over to Nicole to read resolution 6, and then I will look for a mover and a seconder. I understand that we have some of the MBC staff and our CEO available to be able to make some, to assist with some discussion as well, to provide some information. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is Resolution 6 on the agenda and in your package. The topic is Enhanced Transparency and Accountability in MNBC Reporting and Financial Management. It's been submitted by the leaders of the Wacheya Métis Society, the Salmon Arm Métis Association, and the South Okanagan Similkameen Métis Association, and was submitted on January 30th, 2025. It requires a majority vote for approval. Whereas, 1, there is little to no transparency between Métis Nation BC, MNBC, and chartered communities regarding how MNBC spends its funding at its discretion. This opacity has led to concerns among chartered communities about the effective allocation and use of resources. Currently, there is no clear method for chartered communities or citizens of MNBC to assess how effectively MNBC is adhering to its strategic plan or reaching the goals set out in the plan. Without a clear framework, it is difficult to measure progress or hold leadership accountable for unmet objectives. The current MNBC Annual General Meeting, AGM report, is presented in a bloated format that includes complex financial reports without proper context and ministry reports that lack clear metrics or measurable outcomes. These reports are challenging to interpret and do not provide the clarity needed for chartered communities to fully understand MNBC's activities or progress. Chartered communities and citizens of MNBC deserve clear, concise, and transparent reporting on MNBC's progress in meeting goals outlined in the strategic plan. Accountability in both financial management and program delivery is critical to building trust and ensuring effective governance. Be it resolved that the MNGA requests that the MNBC board direct staff to bullet point 1, produce an annual report that directly illustrates how MNBC's activities, programs, and overall initiatives reflect progress or lack thereof towards achieving the goals set out in the MNBC strategic plan. This report should be designed as a measure of accountability to demonstrate whether MNBC is successfully meeting its strategic objectives. Bullet point 2. Ensure the annual report clearly outlines how funding streams from federal and provincial sources, as well as discretionary spending, are allocated and used. This report must provide transparent, accessible information for chartered communities, breaking down the financial management in a way that is easy to understand, allowing chartered communities and citizens to see exactly how resources are being utilized and where they are being allocated. Ensure that the bullet point 3, ensure that the annual report is concise and relevant, presenting financial information with clear context, highlighting key metrics and measurable outcomes for each ministry. This approach will provide a more focused and transparent report, removing unnecessary legislative updates or information that is not pertinent to the previous year's activities. Final bullet point, ensure that every dollar from its annual operating budget is accounted for in the annual report, detailing exactly how funds are being allocated, spent, and managed. This will provide full transparency on financial operations, ensuring that chartered communities and MNBC citizens have clear insight into the fiscal responsibility of MNBC leadership. B. That, subject to approval of A above, the board direct the MNBC treasurer to be accountable for the accuracy of this annual report, ensuring that it meets the transparency and accountability standards outlined above. The treasurer shall work closely with chartered communities to ensure their satisfaction with the transparency and clarity of the report, incorporating their feedback into future improvements. That, subject to approval of A and B above, MNBC engage with chartered communities in a consultation process to develop a standardized reporting format that addresses the need for transparency, accountability, and clarity, ensuring that the needs and concerns of all communities are reflected in future reports.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will look for a mover and a seconder. If you can just use your raise hand function. I see a couple. I see President Allard wishing to move this.
Yes, I so move.
Thank you. And I see Vice President Robinson wishing to second.
Yep, second.
Thank you. Wait just a moment. Thank you very much. So resolution 6 is before the assembly, and I will turn it to our mover, our President Allard, to speak to it first.
Thank you, Chair. David Allard, President Salmon Métis Association. I'm honored to be calling in from Secwepemc territory. I would like to quickly share a few good words to help guide this meeting. I am hoping that kindness and humility, which I consider to be a foundational elements of strength and leadership, can help guide us today. Thank you very much. That being said, since we are one resolution ahead of schedule, I will ask the Assembly to allow 1 or 2 extra minutes of flexibility for my presentation. Thank you very much. So this resolution is inspired in part by the research document that Dr. Curtis Boyer provided to MNBC in regards to a governance review. So I'm going to share a few of excerpts from the report he had. Unlike typical governance reviews that mainly check for adherence to legal frameworks, our goal is to assess MNBC's ability to grow into a fully operational government for the Métis of BC. In conducting traditional governance reviews, the benchmarks and framework used for the assessment are straightforward, the laws under which they are incorporated. In this context, that would be the BC Societies Act, which MNBC is chartered under. However, aiming for self-governance means that simply meeting the requirements of a nonprofit organization under the law isn't sufficient. We need a much broader framework. Thus, we adopt principles of governance that are traditionally applied to nation states. Considering MNBC's ambition to serve as the governing authority for the Métis of BC, mirroring the responsibilities and structure of a nation state, it's essential to apply governance principles that match this vision. Therefore, adopting principles of good governance typically used at the nation-state level provides an appropriate framework for evaluating MNBC's efforts and progress. A movement towards self-governance is fundamentally an exercise in building trust. To achieve self-governance, it's not enough to just set up the necessary structures and processes for an independent government. It also demands a reciprocal relationship between citizens and the government marked by dedication, commitment, active involvement, and a mutual exchange of trust. In the context of the Métis, the pursuit of self-governance arises from a belief in self-determination and recognition of their history and distinction as Indigenous peoples. It represents the desire for governance that truly reflects the unique culture, history, traditions, and values of the Métis community. However, building self-governance is not easy. Just because many wish to have it in place does not make it the journey towards achieving it straightforward. Our analysis reveals a fundamental clash between MNBC's legal structure under the British Columbia Societies Act, which centralizes power within the board of directors, and its aspirations for a governance model that evenly distributes power across executive, legislative, and judicial branches. This situation presents a significant challenge as MNBC strives to reconcile its legal obligations with its goal of establishing a balanced governance system akin to that of a sovereign government, highlighting the tension between legal compliance and the aspiration for distributed governance. MNBC faces yet another catch-22. They must distribute power across their governance structure while at the same time following legal rules that concentrate power within the board of directors. One approach to address this is by seeking a special governing status that allows for a more balanced power distribution, essentially aiming to be recognized beyond just a nonprofit organization. While achieving this status may be challenging and time-consuming, starting this process can demonstrate MNBC's commitment to distributing power away from the board in a formal way, which signals its commitment to distributing power to those looking at MNBC from the outside. MNBC's nonprofit status imposes governance challenges, especially in power distribution. The legal framework centralizes authority within the board of directors, limiting the full implementations of checks and balances. Innovative governance strategies are needed to navigate these constraints effectively. This resolution is the start of that process. It will help establish political accountability through the increased legitimate participation of the legislative branch. We here are that arm of government, which includes the executive branch, which is the board, as well as the judicial branch, the Senate. This resolution is in line with other higher level government structures, which includes direct involvement in questions of spending. Let's live up to our words of transparency and grassroots participation by passing this resolution, thus showing the world that we really are trying to completely move beyond a nonprofit society status. Let us not forget that the presidents and vice presidents that are here today fulfilling a very crucial role are all volunteers compared to the paid members of our other two government branches. By having a clearer view and understanding of where and how monies are received and spent should help guide our collective decision making. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate everyone's patience there, and President Allard requesting that additional time. That was 6 minutes by my count. It was a perfect 2 speakers worth, if I put it that way. I'm going to next turn to Vice President Robinson, and please go ahead.
Thanks, Calum Robinson with GMT Society. Yeah, so speaking in favor of this, essentially it's going to enhance trust and transparency, which from being on this side of the fence, I've seen as a bit of a lack of between MNBC and the community. It'll also provide accountability. There's clear financial reporting will prevent recurring questions at AGMs and MNGAs about funding and the phrase of board discretionary funding. Like this report would just get rid of all of that. And it'd save us a lot of times in these meetings. And more importantly, it'll be community informed. It's one thing if MNBC comes out with a report. It's one thing if if the report meets the needs of communities in the first place. It's kind of similar to when I was in meetings with the province and the feds, and they would say something, well, this will help Métis people. It's like, no, we tell you what will help Métis people. This report will be a way that communities can say, this will help us trust you, instead of MNBC telling us what's going to help us. Just bear with me. Thank you. It'll also prevent waste and over expenditure, not only in the eyes of the community, but also at a staff level. Staff will have something to fall back on when there's some issue about doling out funds that maybe shouldn't be. And it's a proven model of success. Many modern treaty nations do this. Prominent First Nations use similar financial reporting. And it just leads to stronger governance and fosters transparency. So as a whole, enhanced transparency, improved accountability, community involvement. And if outcomes aren't met, it provides a way for us to pivot. This isn't meant to demonize anybody. If the report comes out and says, you know what, maybe we didn't meet XYZ objective. Okay, that's okay. We acknowledge that. We can now pivot. So I think this is good in terms of being a government. We can talk to the government at a government-to-government level. We're transparent, and we can ensure trust and funds are met accordingly. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice President Robinson. Director Harriet, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I am speaking against this resolution. I have to say that I was very disappointed in the tone of this resolution as it was worded. And as the treasurer, who was mentioned several times in here, I wish someone had reached out to me to have a conversation about concerns. We have developed very strong financial policies and internal auditing practices over the last several years. We give more information and transparency in our audited financial statements than our auditors advised us is typical with standard audited practices. However, we have continued to provide this level of detail because we feel it's important for our citizens to see it. As to the comments about our strategic plan, we have very little own source revenue. Our strategic plan is essentially aspirational. It is the direction we think it is important to move our nation in, but we are largely constrained by the program funding MNBC has negotiated over decades and what is available year to year. We are currently working to holding the BC government to their commitment in the Declaration Act Action Plan for an all-of-government approach to funding with the Métis Nation. This would allow more flexibility in how we approach a Métis worldview and in how we allocate our funding. As much of this resolution talks about, as what a lot of this resolution talks about is operational in nature, I would like to ask our CEO, Colette Trudeau, to weigh in and speak to it.
Thank you. And is CEO Trudeau on? If so, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Merci, bon matin, everyone. I'm really here to provide information about what MNBC is currently doing and also acknowledge some of the comments that have been stated so far. So I do want to add on to Minister Harriot's comments around our audit. So we have requirements to do audited financials, and we have gone above and beyond in terms of our audit to the point where we actually provide note disclosures that are above and beyond what our auditors recommend to make sure that we are being transparent and clear about how we are spending funding. I also wanted to note that although we would love to have a special designation as an IGB, federally and provincially, governments are not contemplating this. We are very much focused on completing our Section 35 rights so that we can move in the direction of self-government and self-determination. So we can do all of the things that I know our communities want us to do. We are also already contemplating an annual report. And MNBC ministries are using our strategic plan, our path forward, to provide information to our board of directors on how we are meeting the goals of the nation. And so I want folks to know that we are already doing this work. I also want to speak about the transparency around discretionary funding, which is something that has been coming up quite frequently. And I want to note, and I think that this might come up for the next resolution as well, that MNBC does not have discretionary dollars. We have administration dollars that come in under our funding agreements. Administration dollars is the area and the only area where we have the ability to develop discretionary dollars. And even with that, it is $150,000 for our board of directors, and the vast majority of those dollars go directly to supporting community events. And so I just wanted to make that note. We have legislated requirements to report out. We have our MNGA reports, we have our AGM reports, and we are happy to engage with communities on ensuring that we are using those opportunities to report out in a way that is useful. But to Patrick's earlier comments, we are going above and beyond. We are happy to make sure that we are providing information that meets the needs of our community. But I will also say that we are, in my opinion, doing everything that this is asking of us and can work on what we already have to tailor it to what our community needs are. And so perhaps I'll close my remarks there, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. I did have President Minot's hand up. If you're wishing to speak, please go ahead.
No, I just wanted our CEO to speak, but I will have my hand up a little later to address this issue. I just want to wait for some more speakers.
All right, thank you. President Keith, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually named on this one. But I was going to say I supported this specifically because in the last month or so, I've tried to get information on some financial spending at MNBC, and I haven't been able to do so. I specifically asked, there was a trip that was taken that a lot of people in my region disagreed with. We thought it was money wasted, sending this person on a trip. I had asked Anna, whose last name escapes me at the moment, but I had asked her how much it costs, and I was told I couldn't have that information until the financial report came out, which kind of confused me because this trip happened, over 2 months ago, perhaps. And I said, well, I don't want a lump sum. I don't want we spent X amount of dollars total as a board or as a nation, flying people everywhere. I just want this specific cost. And still, I wasn't allowed that information, and it frustrated me. And I don't want to go to the Societies Act and find the law that says, well, actually, as a voting member, I'm allowed to inquire about specific costs. And this was not a huge cost. This was not something that was going to take a ton of research and a ton of man hours to calculate. It was something very simple, flight, hotel, and possibly food for that journey. And no, I don't feel like I should have been denied that answer or that I should have been made to wait months on end until the financial report comes. I'm finding that I'm more and more relying on Freedom of Information Act and requests from the federal government to kind of work my way around to try to figure out what's being given to MNBC. And I don't like that system. I think that if MNBC is going to be a government, they need to have some sort of freedom of information request where you can, as a citizen, go and inquire about what's been spent and that you are allowed to be replied to within a certain reasonable time frame. That's what I believe is accountable in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, President Keith. I next have President Byrd.
Thank you. Our board, it took a little while, given the tone of this, it took a little while for our board to sort of get down to what the actual intention was behind this resolution. So it was a little bit unfortunate that the tone came across as it did. However, we do value the importance of financial transparency and processes. That being said, ultimately, we're speaking against this resolution. However, we do think it's important to have a financial report at the AGM that is understandable to the layman, to the average person. The financial reports, as we know, are written by accountants and are very easily understood by people who work within that system. They're not as easily understood by the average citizen. And so our recommendation would be to have a financial report available for citizens that is very easy to understand. In addition, it would be incredibly helpful to have a comprehensive understanding of which financial policies and procedures MNBC uses to operate so that we know which leverages or which people we can connect with when we want to have more information about financial policies and financial decisions. For example, which decisions are made by the board, which decisions are made by program areas, which decisions are made by the different areas within MNBC. So again, voting against, however, I hope that the MNBC board and staff will take into account some of the recommendations to be able to allow citizens and community leaders to have better access and understanding of how these various decisions are being made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Byrd. I'm going to move on to someone who has not yet spoken. But I do have you on my queue, Vice President Robinson. I have Vice President Ovens.
Thank you. Good morning. I was challenged and our community was challenged because, again, we found the tone. Well, I don't need a word. I think others have spoken more to it. You know, we are a nation with growing pains. Every family has growing pains. I absolutely, in principle, support some of the thoughts that went with this. I do wonder if there is or can be an avenue for citizens to question, but we all cannot be it sometimes feels like we're trying to be a microscope on top of this financial stuff, and we have enough as community. So I'm concerned. I really wish that there had been a reverse order for all of these things, that C had been first and B had been next. And those were the two things that we started to work on, because those are our requests to make us towards self-governance and not get into the nitty-gritty yet. I just don't feel it's necessary. Our community feels that we have enough going on and we have to have some faith in it, and we have to read those financials. And I really value Caitlin's statement. Yeah, make it more understandable. I wish that at the same time the financial was an issue, that within this they put something about the judicial arm. That's what we need to improve as well. I wish it wasn't always just about the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Owens. And then next speaker, I've got Vice President Robinson. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I acknowledge that there's financial audits, the AGM report. They are quite vague. They report revenues and expenditures. Importantly, audited statements only show what is spent, not if it is appropriately spent, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at with this resolution. Is it'd be helpful to see where the money comes from what funding agreement, grant, block funding from the feds, whatever, where it's then budgeted, and then where it's finally spent, right? That the whole process isn't seen. We just see what we spent every year. And at the end of the day, if MNBC wants to be treated like an Indigenous government, this is just something we need to do. Like I remember in a meeting with the province, I was with the STEPS folks, and we put a report together about 200 people on through STEPS funding, where they were, what funding they had, and then where they were after that funding. And it was so moving for the minister in that meeting that they could see real people from start to finish, right? Like the money was well spent, and it went a long way in that relationship. And across the board, that's what this resolution aims to do. And like I can tell you, there's like when Colette's speaking about spending, like I was in charge of the Batoche trip last year. There's $150,000 budgeted for it. I don't know where that came from. Okay, they had an all staff for $200,000. I don't know where that came from. So it's important for citizens to know this, and it's important to have a report that illustrates where the money's spent appropriately.
Thank you, Vice President Robinson. I've next got President Bremner. Please go ahead.
That's not, I think financial coming from accountants can be so confusing, and that's just, it's beyond what the majority of us are fully aware of and understand. Mid-Island itself, we've been audited a number of times because some funders with larger funds, expect to do that for us, which has been very helpful in terms of some suggestions that come forward. And even our last year's financials, when submitted and put on BC Societies and Service BC for them to look at. One of the things that came back, a suggestion that would be helpful from our accountant, was simply to put in a page that easily identified each and every one of our funders, how much it was, and then from that, in our own office, we actually have a binder every year that identifies every fund and a sheet of all of the expenses out of that. And members are welcome to come in and view that, because we're not about to print off, 20, 25 pages for everybody. But that list, that recommendation this year, I think for myself, I found really helpful. It's like, well, that explains so much. And that's even what Mr. Robinson was speaking to, identifying where the funds came from, and how much they were. And that's enlightening for us and for our communities, even from our own perspective. And another piece that very often is not even covered in what we're looking at is our various expenses that we have for staffing or volunteers. For instance, last year, what was it? I think we had 14 T4As we had to do, which MNBC had sent an email out about having to do that. for honorariums. And we've been, our current accountant had been making us do that for 5 years, just because it was required if their volunteer or honorarium is more than a certain amount. And, you know, those kinds of things, as we all become aware, and very often, as many of our organizations are so small, the need to do that, the amount of money going through their bank accounts is very little. So then even trying to understand what MNBC is covering with their huge budget in comparison can be quite difficult. And I think, you know, I appreciate the questions being put forward. And I think hopefully MNBC and within their financial reporting will give some consideration to some of the stuff they hear that might be appropriate to undertake, but perhaps not all. So it's difficult to know whether I will support this at the end of the day, listening to all the comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Bremner. The next speaker I have is President Graham, and I do see President Wingham's hand up. And I'm just going to let President Wingham know that I'm not going to call on you. If this were, for example, an in-person MNGA, certainly it would be permissible for a vice president or a president to kind of switch that seat. But on this resolution, Vice President Robinson has spoken twice already on this motion, and as the voice of that community. So just wanted to let you know, President Wingham, not meaning any disrespect, but just for that reason. I do have my next speaker is President Graham, and then if President Keith wished to speak, she did have her hand up again for a second time. But go ahead, President Graham.
Good morning, June Graham, Alberni Kaikwet, Métis. As well as echoed already, the tone of this was not favorable to the folks that I shared it with. And in our RGC as well, I wasn't the only one that felt that. So it's unfortunate because I'm sure there's some really good things in here, but it was that tone that made me wonder if there was other issues attached to this, because it felt like that it was directed at people. And once again, I will say, you know, we vote these people in to do a job for us. So ultimately, at some point, we held trust in them that we extended that vote to them. So I always question that about complaining about the folks that we've put in. And I also say we have a responsibility to build relationships. Yes, we're volunteers. We have a responsibility to build a relationship with our regional rep, and our regional reps have a responsibility to build a relationship with us. That's why we have them. So I'm thinking a lot of things I'm hearing may have been communicated with a regional rep. So yes, I'm saddened by the tone of this, and I want us to kind of get back on being more transparent ourselves in our discussions here. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I turn the opportunity to President Keith, I'll first go to President Minot, who has not yet spoken on this matter.
Thank you, Dave. I'm also against this resolution. To me, the way some of it is worded, it's very hurtful, and making accusations against our staff and our board of directors on non-transparency and issues like that. I believe that Métis Nation of BC is probably one of the most transparent governments out there. We've been working hard to make sure that our communities are informed. We've been working hard to assure that we have more MNGAs to make sure that our communities and our leaders have the platform to be able to change, you know, our constitution, our bylaws, our governance structure. I believe we were the only government, the only Métis government right now that does put all these in place to include our communities, include our citizens, to help us, to grow our government. I take offense on people calling us a society.
Mm-hmm.
We go into meetings, we go into negotiations, we go into fights with government, provincial, federal, and other other governments representing our Métis government here, Métis Nation of BC. We don't govern under the Societies Act. We govern under our Constitution. Our Constitution rules over the Societies Act and always has been. We're right now on a building stage. MNBC is building our government right now. We're building our nation. And what we need to do is we need to build our house first, just like any other government, just like any other nation. We need to build our house. We need to build it up. We need to build stability. Until we build that house, we can't support our family, our children. So what we're doing right now in the last 3 years, we've been falling so far behind by our last leaders in the past that haven't fought these battles for us to establish our government here in BC, to establish the rights of Métis citizens in British Columbia, and to establish a voice of all our people. That's why we do operate in the manner we do. I still believe that we have the best governance structure by any other Indigenous government or any other government. We have more inclusion than any government by our leaders, by our citizens, and we'll continue to do that. But one thing we need to know is we need to build our house. We need to build our structure. We need to make it solid so we can support our communities, so we can support our children and help each and every one of us grow. If we destroy the structure, then we have nothing for nobody. We ain't able to go forward. We ain't able to work with our communities. We ain't able to support our communities. This is the time right now where we all need to come together. We all need to come together as one with the same voice when we're fighting with governments, when we're fighting with industries, on behalf of our citizens, on behalf of our communities. These sort of issues, we still need to address them. This is why we have this forum. This is why we put this together. That's why everything is considered when we bring them forward. And I really appreciate all the work that has been done on this. Don't get me wrong on that aspect. There has been a lot of work and consideration done on this here resolution. And I really appreciate all the work that is done. That's why our government is so effective. It's because we have communities like yourselves, individuals like yourselves that put forward these resolutions to help us grow and to help us move forward for the future, for our nation, for our children.
Thank you very much, President Minot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next speaker I have is President Swears.
Good morning. This is going to be a questionable thing for me, is because having a local for over 30 years, and some of these issues have arisen, Walter. This is past, present, and future right now. And for me, I don't see what is wrong with putting in such a document in your policy, because for me, some areas of this concern would be also tackling some of the things that we heard yesterday about having people who are in the adopted part running for office. Some of these statements in here would make MNBC a more reputable, honest organization to work for. And so there would leave no option for someone to come in if they want to work for a very good, solid organization. If we take all the butt hurt words out of here and we continue to make this resolution or this stance for the people, by the people, and with the leadership, we can make a very solid nation. And I don't think that maybe it's because of grammatical errors that were put in here, or maybe driving home the fact that there is a problem. We have to, for me, really think on this thing. It's to making a solid organization, nation building 500 years in the future more powerful by not putting in these things that are answerable to your people. Because at the end of the day, it's the people that are putting you up there in that livelihood, in that leadership, and respect coming back from mom and dad would be very helpful to the children. So that's how I look at this, that let's not really toss this out because you're feeling butthurt. We all get insulted at local level. We're questioned like this by our membership because we couldn't provide a jug of milk for somebody, but yet I'm driving a brand new truck. All these things, these are insults come with humanity. So I just want us to really look at this as to making us a very strong organization, all of us, not just leadership, but all of us, so that when we are asked by the community, what is MNBC doing, we can actually say that they're doing this and this and this. There's there's a shortfall there. We can't do this. Instead of constantly trying to pick out information from what's going on with Trump, our leadership, our lack of growing capacity. I don't know. This is where, like, I'm all over the map because it's such a great big issue here, but I also support the wording in here that we need to make our organization top notch. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, President Swears. I have Chairperson Carrier next, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, just trying to get on here. I've been listening to this, and I'm one of the new people to the board. And I just want to state that I have been running since I got elected. I have not slowed down. The learning curve is steep. So I'm just going to start by saying when we have comments criticizing the fact that we get paid, I left a profession to do this work. So please stop suggesting that we aren't working, because one of the things I've observed is what a hard working board this is. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Can we make improvements? Absolutely. But we are working. We have hit the ground running, and I am running and trying to catch up with myself. So I just want to put that on the table as somebody who's new to this job. I also want to thank President Allard for bringing in Curtis Boyer's report. And I want to say that this would be really helpful for, I think, all of us at this table to read. And that maybe this is a discussion that we have later on, that we table this resolution so that we can actually do the work of governance, that we all go through the report, that we collectively talk together about how we see this improvement with our governance going. Do I agree that we want financial transparency that the average person can read? Absolutely. That is not my strength. So I appreciate that the suggestion that we move in that direction, that we have reports that the average person can break down and digest. I also really want to thank President Byrd and President Graham for your comments, because they are helpful. And you were telling us about what your communities have been talking about. I'm wondering how many of you have actually engaged with your communities and got feedback from your boards and your citizens, because that's important too. So this is yes, this is a collective effort, but this is a reciprocal relationship that we have to develop going back and forth. So I'm going to suggest that we table this resolution so that we can come together as a nation, that we come together as leaders, that we actually sit down. Since I'm confused, is this a criticism of the finances, or is this a criticism of the government or our governance structure? We sit down since President Allard used the Curtis Boyer report as the basis to start this conversation. Let's have the conversation. Let's have this conversation with the report and look at the recommendations and look at how we as leaders can move forward to make this more palpable for all of us. I think we have to remember at the end of the day, we may have disagreements, but we are all in this together. We want to move our nation forward. We want the best for our people. So let's not shoot ourselves in the back. How can we collectively work for the good? And thank you, President Graham, for saying at some level we have to trust each other. Yeah, it's this is good. This is the work of governance. This is the heavy lifting. So I do appreciate the conversation. I thank you all for your comments, but clearly we need to have more understanding with each other at this table. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Carrier. So I just wanted, you're motioning to, you're saying table, but to postpone this resolution to the next MNGA, the summer one, or what is your proposal?
No, I'm not even going to put a timeline on it. I'm suggesting that we table it so that we can actually sit down and have this conversation about governance. Since President Allard began the conversation saying that this resolution was based on the Curtis Boyer report, I think I haven't read the report. I didn't even know it was online. So how many of you have read the report? I'm curious. So maybe we need to do some education rather than just do a knee-jerk reaction because people are upset here. Like, let's do some education and take the temperature down and let's work together on this. Let's come together. Let's not be on two sides here. So Dave, I guess, I don't know. I would look to the governance experts to word that,
Yeah,
but that this
so
is tabled until a future time until we do this governance work together.
so what I understand, I'm sorry, just give me a second. Thank you very much. And so what essentially we have is a postpone to a certain time, given that there's a condition attached to it. Give it to have the discussion of that conversation. I presume that might be in the form of a town hall or something along those lines, which had been discussed with regards to the adoption resolution. Is that kind of the intention or the idea, Chairperson Carrier?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Mr. Speaker?
Yes. So obviously, if we're looking to postpone, there's either we can have a specific date. So an example would be the previous resolution that was postponed to the next MNGA, or in this case, from what it sounded like, wasn't a specific date, but it was after a specific event, so a condition to it. And you mentioned a discussion. Would that be? Are you envisioning like a town hall similar to what had been discussed, and that would be planned for the adoption resolution?
So what I'm going to suggest is that we don't put a specific date on this because this is the work of nation building. I'm not suggesting that we don't have I think this should be goal oriented. And I also believe that this is where we interface with our governance experts because I am not a governance expert. I would like to see that we have a method and a system and a path forward where we as leaders can come together, where we can dig through the Curtis Boyer report.
No, thank you. I
and
understand
not
that
just
part.
put it
It's
on the
just trying to-
governance committee.
Thank you. I'll turn to Nicole to help perhaps explain then what's the option, what's going to be.
So, Chairperson Carrier, you're kind of talking about two separate motions. There is the idea of postpone, or postpone definitely, which is to a certain time or until some sort of condition passes. So you could postpone consideration of this resolution until for example, a town hall to discuss this matter takes place with all the community leaders. If you do not attach a condition or a date to it, the motion is to postpone indefinitely, which means it just dies on the floor.
Okay, thank you for that. So yes, I do think that we need to attach a condition to it, but I am a collaborative leader and I want to bring in the gathered assembly here. My suggestion would be that we postpone until a condition or conditions have happened so that there's opportunity for some collective education and then maybe culminating in a town hall.
So we would need to specify those conditions in the motion. So you can't just say until conditions are met. You need to explain what the conditions are.
So I would suggest that we have some regional education with our governance folks and a town hall. And I'll leave that to the assembly to comment and see what would work for them in terms of educational purposes.
Can you put that up?
Thank you.
All right, so we'll get the wording up in a second for this motion, but I understand it'll be to postpone the consideration of Resolution 6 until after the town hall and consultation on this matter. This will require a seconder. For everyone who has their hands up, I have been keeping a list, so please feel if you could lower your hand, and I will be looking to see if we have a seconder. So if a hand remains up.
Yeah, my hand's up, Walter, to second it.
To second, thank you. So once we have the wording there, I just want to make sure we'll get Chairperson Carrier to confirm the wording that she's satisfied with that, and then we'll take the seconder from President Minot.
I would just flip it. So I would say regional consultation and like a town hall after, so that the consultation and the education can happen prior, and then we can gather for the town hall to further discuss this before taking it back to the MNGA.
And I think we're
maybe can we add another thing in there, Carmen, if you're okay with that? To it should also go back to the by our committee, a resolution committee, like Dave and Patrick and them, to revise it and then bring it to the communities, to the RGCs, and then to a town hall.
No, well, President Minot, we don't have a resolutions committee.
Or it's not a resolution committee. What's the committee you guys are on, Dave? And
governance.
The governance committee?
I would ask, I would be okay with that, but I would ask the governance committee if they want more work, because I've been on that committee and it is a lot of work. So who would like to speak for the governance committee?
Well, I know yesterday President Allard put some information in the chat and spoke as well about the burdens on the governance committee currently and their priorities. And it sounded to me that there were other matters that were of greater priority and not really taking more work at that point. But I'll leave that to, I see a couple members of the governance committee here. Perhaps I'll turn it over to President Allard, given he had made those comments yesterday, and anyone else from the governance committee that wishing to comment.
I can see it being reasonable to have the governance committee discuss this. I know that my colleague, Mr. Harriet, is quite interested in fleshing out the higher level concepts of governance there, and but the problem is by bringing it in at this time, I don't think it'll serve the purpose of what we want to try to accomplish, because I do believe we should still prioritize the charter agreement work that we're doing. So we can still work on it afterwards, but I think for the purpose of this amendment, we leave it out and we focus more on what we have now in front of us here.
And I see Presidents Jobin and Swears. I believe you're both on the governance committee as well. Perhaps you just 30 seconds, your thoughts.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Travis Joe, Métis Nation Columbia River Society. Yeah, this is another resolution, I think, that is very much related to what we have been working on, which is that charter agreement between MNBC and the communities, and trying to set up some tools and rules and between, like, for this relationship. And so I'm just sort of wondering if that might be a chance to look at this after we bring that new charter community agreement to the MNGA. Maybe that could be one of the, we postpone until that, because I think a lot of this is we're currently discussing even right now is transparency between two community and MNBC. Thanks.
Thank you. And President Swears?
Yes, I do agree with you, Travis, that some of these clauses in here that I put, even the first bullet, would be something that I would want in my chartered agreement when we're discussing this. So there are some things in here that might be cleared up if it came to the governance council, because it is something that our local, and I know Tony's local, as because of the longevity of our stuff, has asked these questions, and we want some security. And so security goes both ways. So I think this is what, to me, I don't mind working on it at our level at all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I think with the way that the motion, the postponement motion is worded, I think would allow for the governance committee to kind of weigh in during your discussions. It doesn't set a specific timeline, as opposed to the consideration would come after the or pending the regional consultation in town hall. And so where the discussion from the governance committee kind of falls within that, I think is a bit is open. I'm going to just then confirm with Chairperson Carrier and President Minot, who indicated that he'd be seconding. Is the current wording of the motion acceptable? Chairperson Carrier?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, President Minot?
Yes.
Thank you. So we do have then the motion to postpone on the floor. So I do see some hands that are up. I will record those on the new list for postponement motion. And I think we've already heard from Chairperson Carrier and President Minot. I'll turn to Vice President Robinson, President Allard, and President Dieger. And for those who had their hands on the original resolution, I do have that still recorded. If this motion does not pass, then I will go back to my previous list. So please, Vice President Robinson.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about tone here, and if you haven't figured out, I wrote this resolution, and I've known Patrick for 5 years from my time at MNBC, and we've always had a good relationship. And the fact that treasurer is mentioned as accountable is because, well, they're the treasurer, so that's the only reason I put that in there. As far as the amendment goes, I would just like to add that the town hall would have to take place within 6 months.
Chairperson Carrier and President Minot, is there any issue with adding that specific time? 6 months?
I would throw that back to governance because, sorry, trying to get, because I'm not sure what their workload is. This is going to require some support by governance to engage with our regions. I'm mindful that they've got a lot on their plate right now, so I will throw that back to our governance experts.
Well, what I might do then, I will leave the wording as it is, and Vice President Robinson, once we have a couple more speakers on the motion, if you're wishing to amend and have a seconder to add something like that, like the 6 months, then I'll return to you to do that if you wish. A motion.
Can I speak as a seconder on this motion?
Yes, just give me a quick second. This is a motion that is amendable, given it has the clauses, so I just wanted to put that out there. And I will then turn to President Minot.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to put a timeline on it at this time, just because of this is going to be very contentious. It's going to be something that we really have to go through. Our governance committee is going to have to do a lot of work on this. Our communities, and then a town hall. I can see you having a town hall within that timeline and everything like that, but to put a timeline on it wouldn't do it enough. Give it enough concentration as it needs. But as is, it's all right. But I would like to have it done within 6 months. That would probably be the target, to try to get this across and try to get it into one of our MNGAs this year, so we can present it on the floor at either this. It won't be this AGM, but it might be. Who knows? It depends on the workload everybody has. So I just wouldn't want to put a timeline on it. I'd like to see it be done within 6 months. I'd like to see it done even as soon as we can, so we can have the conversation on it. But I wouldn't want to put a timeline on it.
Thank you. President Allard, on the motion to postpone.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this, and as well with the timelines added by Mr. Robinson here. I don't see any problem with that. The MNGA has mandated MNBC to conduct extensive consultations with the citizens in regards to governance matters, and that happened a year and a half, potentially even longer. We had the timelines were included. We had to change them again. So at least with having timelines, it kind of creates a little bit of more motivation. And on that question, on that topic of the MNGA mandated task to MNBC to conduct these extensive consultations, where are we with that? So this could potentially tie in with that. Like, there would be a great opportunity to tie that in. The MNGA, the voice of the Legislative Assembly, should be as crucially important and respected as the other two branches of our government. I'm glad the board gets paid. I'm happy the Senate gets paid. Me referring to volunteer presidents not getting paid is not to highlight the fact that there's any issues on my part with the other two branches getting paid. It's to highlight the fact that we would like resourcing that can assist us in participating more fully in nation building. So just to clear that up, I just want to be on the record here. That's all that is. So I'm in favor of the postponement and adding timelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson Dieger.
Oh man, I've been screaming here. So I'm the Minister of Economic Development. Listen, you and Dave, you know it. Anthony, you know it. Callum, thank you for bringing this up. There are good points in here. I see past and I'm looking and seeing lots of great tidbits. What I'm disappointed in is when it gets presented at the AGM, there wasn't one question last AGM, not one question when Anna was presenting. And being part of the Fraser Health Accord and being able to watch First Nations in action when they're discussing health and doesn't include all the population. It includes the leadership. And that's why we have 4 MNGAs. Patrick and I were adamant about more inclusion, more inclusion. This is exactly what we need. I see it as frustration. I don't take any negative on this, but I see really good points. I believe we could do this by presenting it either before or after our next MNGA, having Anna present like she would at an AGM, and us and you, especially as leaders, go, can you expand that section a little further? So we can design and build a better system of presentations because some of you want more detailed information and some of you want less. So I think we can do this by bringing it directly, putting you right in front of our financial team, and then let's go through how we should present this. What's the information that you're looking for? What you would like to see? This is nation building, but it has to include you. I don't think this is town hall worthy at all. I don't think we're going to get anywhere that way. But if we're all in a room together and we're going through this, I think we're going to all achieve what we're looking for, and that's proper financial transparency. And I do think we need a process for inquiry. So I do agree with Jamie that there should be some kind of process if anyone has an inquiry. It would just stop everything else. So I think we can do this at the next MNGA, either before or after. Let's do just an MNGA town hall on how the finances are to be presented and what kind of detail you're looking for. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Director Fisher.
Darn you, Louis, you stole some of my thunder. I could see you were like hot on the seat with an idea, and so was I. I agree with what everybody is saying. I totally believe in financial transparency for our nation. And I remember as a president looking at the financial reports, and I literally had to get help in reading them. So I understand the frustration. I really believe, and I think we even discussed this at our last board meeting, about like a financial forum of somehow, or a forum somehow that simplified things. And I love the idea of having it before an AGM or before an MNGA. And so that gives you time to go through it, ask the questions, and then at the AGM or at MNGA, anything else that comes up could be discussed. So I think what we've just done in the last 20 minutes is exactly what needs to be done on this resolution. Love it.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any other speakers. I will open it back to Vice President Robinson for the to put in if he's wishing to amend this proposed motion. And I would recognize if we, for example, if 6 months was selected as the date, and if coming up to the next MNGA looking like that date may or may not work for that, that can be a motion. This could be kind of revisited. The timeline can be revisited at that MNGA through a motion there if it's brought. So I know President Minot was suggesting certainly a desire to get it done within 6 months. So if that is a timeline that's put on there and by the Assembly, that timeline can be adjusted at the next MNGA, which would be within that 6 months, if necessary, if it's found that for example, the governance committee is just not able to get to it as hoped, that there could be essentially an extension. So what I'm going to suggest then, I will return to Vice President Robinson if you're wishing to amend the proposed motion to add that timeline, and then I'll look for a seconder for that. So Vice President Robinson, I'll recognize you if you wish to speak.
Yep, I'll move to add the timeline. What if we just make it the AGM? Give 7 months, right? We can present on it there. I would like to note too, like the community consultation is in this motion, so I'm a fan that we're doing it without doing it.
What I might suggest, just like I think the timeline that you suggest is good, but I think we put the time because the resolution. This resolution would not be considered at the AGM because it's an MNGA resolution. So if
I meant just the timeline for just before the next AGM kind of thing.
So what we might say, pending a regional consultation and town hall of the contents of the resolution set to conclude by the 2025 AGM. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, works for me.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? I see Chairperson DeJager. Thank you. So I'm not sure if we need any further discussion on this proposed timeline. What I'm going to suggest is we can, when Judith's ready, we'll create a poll for the amendment to the motion of adding the timeline, if I can put it that way. So we'll be voting first on whether to add the timeline or not. If you're in favor of that amendment to the motion of set to conclude by the 2025 AGM, you'll vote in favor. If you're opposed to adding that timeline, then opposed. And of course, everyone has the right to abstain. And this would be a majority vote once to pass for this to add the amendment. So when Judith's ready, we'll have that. And when it pops up, you can please enter your vote. And this is just to add the timeline wording at this stage. Thank you. Please enter your vote. All right, 5 more seconds if you have not yet made your selection. All right, thank you very much. We'll close the poll and I'll get Nicole to provide the result.
Thank you. So the vote on the amendment to the amendment to set to conclude by the 2025 AGM, added to the original amendment, has 31 votes in favor, 5 opposed, and 1 abstention. So the motion carries.
Thank you very much. So now we have the motion as amended. So the wording there on the screen under D. What I'm going to look first for, given this is a motion, we can look for unanimous consent. So I will look for if we have unanimous consent that the MNGA postpones the consideration of Resolution 6, pending a regional consultation and town hall on the contents of the resolution set to conclude by the 2025 AGM. If there's any objection to that, please just indicate that by raising your hand. And if there is, we'll go to a poll. Otherwise, we'll see if there's unanimous consent. Any objection? All right. Not seeing any objection then. The motion to postpone passes. And we'll record that. And I want to thank everyone for the discussion. We have one resolution left, and we're about 8 minutes away from what had originally been planned as a health break. I'm going to suggest we take the break a couple minutes early, and we return at 10:40 to complete Resolution 5. So we'll see you at 10:40.
You know what Lynn just told me? That on multiple occasions, when she was right,
Okay, everyone, welcome back. It's 10:40. We're going to proceed with quorum, and then we'll get to our final resolution, resolution number 5. I'll turn it over to Nicole for quorum now.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the quorum count. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you're here. Walter Minot.
Here.
Melanie Allard.
Here.
Carmen Carrier.
Here.
Danielle Bergevin. Danielle?
I'm here. Sorry, I'm
okay.
here.
Louis DeJager.
Present.
Patrick Harriet.
Present.
Alan Lavalle.
Here.
Dean Gladieu.
Present.
Deb Fisher.
Present.
Rainey Gervais.
Present.
Susie Hooper.
Present.
Paulette Flamont.
Present.
Okay, and on to the community presidents here. Dylan Adam.
Present.
Tom Adams.
Present.
David Allard.
Here.
Rob Anderson.
Here.
Caitlin Bird.
Here.
Joy Bremner.
Present.
Russell or Zev Brewer.
Zach Brewer, present.
Thank you. Bernadette Chaboyer.
Present.
Alana Copeland.
Present.
No crying, Alana. It's not that bad. Nicole Corson.
Present.
Jeff Crozier, or Madeline Crozier, I should say.
Present.
Anyone from Moccasin Flats? Sylvia DeRoche.
Present. Sorry, I got kicked off the Zoom and I just got back on.
You are present and accounted for. Thank you. Cheryl Dodman.
Present.
Jamie Lee Keith.
Present.
Alicia Fernando.
Present.
Thank you. Feb Goulet.
Here.
Tony Goulet. Did he make it in? Probably not. June Graham. President Graham. Travis Jobin.
Present.
Anthony Crillo.
Present.
Richard Lewis.
Anna Owens for Richard Lewis.
Right. Thank you. Tyler Massey.
Present.
Betty Ann McDonnell.
Present.
I will try again for Moccasin Flats. Is Leanne McFeeters here? Anya McVeigh. Or anyone from Two Rivers? Okay. Val Pace.
I'm here.
Pardon.
Did I miss
Oh,
my
yeah.
name?
There you are. Thank you.
No? Can't hear.
Yep, I will mark you president, June. Where did I end up? Cal Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. Mert Servatius.
I'm present.
Lisa Shepherd.
Here.
Oh, Zelda Hunt is here, I believe, for North Fraser.
Yes.
Thank you. Joyce Sundin.
Present. Sorry.
Marlene Swears.
Present.
And Pixie Wells.
Tap it in for the Fraser Valley Métis Association.
Thank you. And there is a quorum.
Did you get me?
I did,
Nicole?
President Graham. Thank you.
I had muted everyone without knowing it. Sorry.
No problem. We've got you counted. All right, thank you very much. I will turn right back to Nicole. We're going to go through our final resolution, resolution number 5.
So this is resolution 5 on the agenda and in your package. The subject is funding for chartered communities. It does not affect legislation. It was submitted by the South Okanagan Similkameen Métis Association, the Salmon Arm Métis Association, and Wachea Métis Association on January 17th, 2025, and requires a majority vote for approval. Whereas chartered communities are experiencing unprecedented demands on their resources and services, volunteers within these communities are increasingly facing burnout due to the extensive and ongoing nature of their contributions. There is a need for substantial financial support to ensure the sustainable operation and success of these communities. Funding is essential for covering costs related to the rent and housekeeping needs, hiring contractors / staff, and organizing programs and events that benefit the community. Strict documentation of how funds are used is critical to ensure transparency and accountability. And if funds are not entirely spent or properly accounted for, the continuation of funding may be at risk. Be it resolved that the resolution approved at the March 2023 MNGA entitled Stipend for Volunteer Community Elected Members attached as Appendix A be rescinded and replaced with the following. A, MNBC provide funding up to $150,000 annually to each MNBC chartered community. B, MNBC provides the funding on a predictable date annually. C, communities that accept this funding are required to maintain detailed records of expenditures and provide comprehensive annual reports to the MNBC with requirements to be established by the MNBC. And D, funding allocation is contingent upon the compliance with the documentation and accountability measures set forth by the MNBC. And I just wanted to clarify that it looks like there is a second resolution 5 in the package, but that is just so you can refer to the previous resolution approved in March 2023.
Thank you very much, Nicole. And I will look for a mover and a seconder. I see Vice President Robinson moving. Is that correct?
Yeah, I move this.
Thank you. And Director Harriet, a seconder?
That's correct.
Thank you very much. I will invite Vice President Robinson to speak to the resolution.
Yeah, I'm just speaking in favor. Capacity is hard for all of us. I know we struggle to put programs together and make a full-time schedule, and there's just growing demands from our community. So yeah, so I speak in favor of this.
Thank you very much. Director Harriet, please go ahead.
Unfortunately, I'm speaking against this resolution. We are supporting communities through many different funding pots. We find opportunities from health, early years, and UPIP flow through, just to name a few. At every meeting with government, whether federal or provincial, I am advocating for communities. Our Métis government provides more money directly to our communities than any other Métis government, even those that have 10 times the own source revenue that we do and double the budget. Is it as much as we would like to support communities? No, it is not. I can say that we have increased funding to communities by 200% from pre-COVID levels, and we will continue to find more opportunities to grow that support. As much as we understand that predictable timing for funding would help everyone plan the year for communities, MNBC does not receive money predictably or at the same time for the programs every year. This is compounded by how we receive funds through over 160 different contribution agreements. We have no way to honor a specific date that funding to communities will be sent. As this is, once again, talks about operational matters, I would ask our CEO to speak to it.
Thank you. And I presume we still have CEO Trudeau.
Yes, I'm still on.
Please go ahead.
Great. So to add to Minister Harriet's comments, I think it's important to note that we are at unprecedented times. We were just recently in Victoria on a lobby government to government week with the provincial government. And I will tell you, tariffs are at the front end of the conversations. And quite frankly, the impacts on the economy are already being felt with funding. And I will point to a decision that came in as recently as Friday. We have all been advocating incredibly hard around the challenges associated with Bill 40 and the IEC terms of reference. MNBC receives $300,000 2023 to 2025 over 2 years to do the important work that we need to do with K-12. We were just informed on Friday that it has been cut to $50,000. So the cuts are already impacting MNBC, and we also made a really big decision in November around the departure from Métis National Council. Regardless of that decision, and all recognizing that there would likely be some impacts, we do have some of those agreements coming to an end at the end of this fiscal year. That includes our urban programming for Indigenous peoples funding. We have also been informed that the national portfolio for UPIP has been cut to $27 million across the country. Now, this was an envelope of over $60 million previously, and had a distinctions-based programming amount attached to it. They are not taking that approach, and it is proposal-based. So it requires MNBC to now submit a proposal to get the funding to support our communities, which we are absolutely going to do, and request the same, if not more, to support communities. But I wanted to bring that to your attention. As a result of the economic pressures, we are facing a shortfall as a result. And this is not something we could predict. This is not something we could plan for. We are working just as much as provincial governments, federal governments, organizations across the board to find efficiencies, centralize MNBC, to open the door to additional funding being available to use to support our key priorities. MNBC needs time to focus on our self-government, which we have spoke about. Our Section 35 report is going to be complete next month, and we are pushing so hard to communicate this out, to get political support, because in all honesty, and just in terms of continued financial transparency, programs and services for Indigenous people are now being put up against the lens of Section 35 rights recognition. So an example of this is the School Food Act. So providing funding for kids to access a school food program. Other recognized Métis governments receive funding, MNBC did not. This is a program and service that is having a Section 35 lens applied to it. Also, Minister Harriet noted that we have limited to, quite frankly, no own source revenue. We are pushing incredibly hard on our economic development arm, and we are working to make this happen. But in terms of creating that fund to use on key priorities for MNBC, it does not exist yet. The funding we receive at MNBC is prescriptive. So when funding proposals are submitted, we build out a budget, and that is what the funder holds us accountable to, just like charter communities. When you submit proposals, they're approved for funding. You are to utilize those dollars as you have set out in your proposal. We are in the same boat. So just again, another piece, and sorry, Mr. Speaker, I will be as quick as possible. The funding does not come at predictable times. And again, we've had some challenges. An example of this is we just got notification of funding that we have been pushing so hard to get for our child and family service providers with MCFD. And we just got notification that those dollars will come through. It is February, and we have been expecting it for this entire fiscal year. And our fiscal year ends March 31st. It is not predictable. Government is always friendly. And with all the community presidents I worked with under other program streams, I know you all remember those periods of time where we got funding in the last couple months of the fiscal year and were required to expend those dollars. There has not been a change, again, from government. So I want to recognize that the resolution is up to 150,000, but we need to ensure sustainability, and we are all being really critical of MNBC, our structure, to make sure that we have the ability to fund our communities, fund the priorities across MNBC. And I also just wanted to note one piece that I heard earlier. Again, we do not receive block funding. We receive funding for governance, which supports our MNGAs, AGMs, our board of directors, and so I just wanted to make sure that it was really clear. MNBC does not get block funding where we can use it however we choose. It supports government and governance, it supports communities, it supports MNBC. So I just wanted to also clarify that. And if there are areas where folks need some clarification on different pieces, I'm happy to jump in later as well.
Thank you very much, CEO Trudeau. I did have President Minot's hand. Did you lower it and wish to speak later?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I next have President Keith. Please go ahead.
Yes, my community supports this, and it doesn't make me or my charter a bad group. It doesn't make us jealous. It doesn't make us demanding. We need funding to keep lights on and to keep our head above water. We're trying to find funding to support our youth so that they can be exposed to culture. We've also signed some cultural agreements as of recent, in which we agreed to help expose those in our local area to culture. I certainly hope no one at MNBC takes this personally. We just need funding. We can't go on without it, and we are really struggling. And I know we talk about struggles, but I'm sure there are those that would label this as greedy, and I don't see it that way at all. Regrettably, if it doesn't pass, I think I'll propose a similar resolution every MNGA. Again, not because I'm a terrible person, but because my community needs funding. And we're quite aware that MNBC has a lot of programming and staff, and we too would just like not to be rich, but to just be able to get by and have our basic needs met. And I just wanted to add that I put funding up to, so that if there were charters that thought, oh my goodness, that's a lot of money, we don't, like, we're too small, we don't want that much funding, you can certainly accept less. I thought it was very fair that we have really strict accountability for these fundings if we get them. I also understand MNBC might not have these funds, but I think it's a direct call to action as well that there should be a pursuit of this, and that it should be top priority. And yes, funding cuts are coming, but it's important to protect those that are more vulnerable. And the charters are most vulnerable because we have barely anything to begin with. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, President Keith. I next have President Copeland. Please go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to jump on and say that I understand communities are struggling. Fort St. John Métis Society, we are trying to raise the funds ourselves and not be dependent on MNBC. We have our food trailer that works. We're trying to hire all of our community members. We have a bingo that we put on every week. It's an online bingo. We have a couple more entrepreneurial endeavors we're trying to work to hire our community members. We're trying to be self-sufficient without MNBC. I mean, we use their money for our programming and stuff, but we're trying to be sufficient without them. And I will say our regional director supports us and helps us. She volunteers. She does so much. She does so much for us that, and I understand that we're all don't have the time for what we do, and the same with us. And I think our board, we are so busy. I'm hoping that if we get all the stuff done that we want to do, it's going to lessen the load that we have. I don't know. But so far, we're able to do a bunch of stuff by the little things that we've done. Anyway, that might be, maybe MNBC could help us all get some kind of businesses going to help us, right? I mean, this is how successful people do stuff is let's just try and see what we can do as an entrepreneur. That's it.
Thank you very much, President Copeland. President Byrd, please go ahead.
Thank you. Our community is voting against this resolution simply because there's already a resolution, as is referenced as Appendix A in this one, from January 2023 that directs MNBC to resource administrative and operational capacity funding for all chartered communities. It doesn't place a top limit on it, and it doesn't ask for a predictable date and funding schedule that we know MNBC can't do, as the CEO mentioned. I'm well aware that funding doesn't always come at a predictable time to MNBC, and so it's impossible for us to ask that of them when they don't have it themselves. So we're speaking in opposition. There's already a resolution in place, and we just need to be continuing to, and I know MNBC does this well, but they are advocating for funding. We need to continue to be putting pressure on MNBC to asking, and we need to be putting pressure on our provincial and federal governments. We are leaders. We can echo the voice. We can stand behind MNBC in that. It's tough times right now, and so I really do like what Alana was saying about asking MNBC to help us become self-sufficient so that we're not reliant on government grants for our funding. But I just don't see the need for having a duplicative resolution, and so we're speaking against this. Thank you.
Thank you, President Byrd. President Bremner, please go ahead.
I wanted to open what I'm going to say with, if we actually could get this from MNBC, I'd do a really long jig. But I also recognize the circumstances. And that's really fair because, I mean, I look at, we've been, independently getting funding from many directions that were not MNBC. So the funding we then got from MNBC was spectacular to help put us over the top. And, and recently, we had applied for a significant grant and they had over 800 applicants. 6 months after we were supposed to start, they phoned and said, they're telling us, oh, you've got this funding, and I had no idea who they were. And we've applied for another significant one going into this next fiscal year, and they've sent a notification out. They've had over 1,200 applicants for that same fund, and it's going to be a lottery, not based on the merit of your applications after having done those. So we understand the cutbacks, and that those numbers are really showing the need that, we're all recognizing. Some of the funding we may have been able to depend on may not be there going forward. And so how do we look after ourselves with that? And again, we've been looking at, doing a business ourselves. And I think it takes a lot of effort and work. And we need, within our communities, I'm hopeful it will start to pull individuals in to support us, that this is a different level of support. And everyone has to understand that when they come forward, and the amount of work we'd have to put in to be able to do that on a significant level to keep us functioning the way we had been in the past. And again, it's simply cutbacks. And the cutbacks are not our fault. They're not MNBC's fault. That is not something MNBC has done something wrong that's causing that. This is across the board, no matter who we are. And I think, you know, just on that part, you know, I think even if we turn this one down, you know, why not put it in again next year? Who knows, right? You just never know. Funding may come from someplace. But yes, good luck, everyone, in raising our own funds. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bremner. Director Flamond, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I really want to thank the people who worked on this resolution. I'm glad that it was brought forward because it really allows for discussion and creative ideas. So one of the things that I have been advocating in my last term and this term as well is that MNBC assist all the chartered communities in doing an economic development plan. I've had preliminary discussion with our STEPS ministry, with our Métis Financial Corp as well. Now I have been put onto our economic development ministry as the associate minister for that as well. So I really believe that the fact is that if we build a community economic development plan for each community, then we'll be able to see what their strengths are. So we undertake that, and I really hope that before my term is up, that this is going to happen. I would love to see it happen ASAP. And then we look at that. And thank you, Alana, for you know, your mention of me with your chartered community. You know, we all are entrepreneurial. We as Métis people never really were given any handouts. We had to work for what we need. So I really believe in the community's expertise and what could work in your communities. And I want to be able to support that. And I know that our board, I mean, they're shaking their heads, but I know that they also support this vision as well. So I believe that this is one way that we would be able to eliminate, and then getting your own source revenue just empowers you to even do better and better. So I am voting against this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Flamond. Please go ahead, President Allard.
Yeah, hi, David Allard, Salmon Arm Métis Association. I support this. Part of the reason is if this was to pass, and I do recognize the challenges, but at a certain point, there's no harm in asking, and it does create pressure politically on MNBC, which is meant to send a message and to help them out, help us out. I do support this one for one of the reasons is extra capacity dollars would help the volunteer presidents to allocate their time towards nation building, as in referenced in the previous resolution here. We could hire people to do work that we already do in our communities, free up time and spend more time at MNGAs or AGMs or searching out for economic opportunities, which is what we are doing here in Salmon Arm. We're not overly dependent on MNBC, which is nice. So with all that in mind, I'm curious, fundings are allocated in prescriptive models, which I understand. What I'm curious about is, and this may just help inform the position of MNBC, is how those decisions come about within that prescriptive lens. As an example, could we get information on the decision-making process in regards to the social capacity infrastructure fund? We were promised a while ago that we would have the opportunity to apply for up to $250K to help us with capacity building, and that was took quite a while, but basically that was pulled away from us. Can we understand what happened there? My sense is the funds were or are there, but decisions were made to allocate them into property acquisitions. That's my understanding. And then also that would be directed to the housing minister and the CEO. And also, could we get feedback from the president and who's the housing minister, and the CEO as to any perceived challenges that they see with operations as far as spending money in a prudent way and getting good value for money as far as operations go with MNBC. So a couple questions there just to help shed light on why this will probably not go ahead, and I'm fine with that. And also what are how many employees does MNBC have? Just to give insight to the conversation there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Allard. Perhaps if CEO Trudeau's still on, she can perhaps respond to some of those questions.
Happy to respond. I will leave the conversation around the community projects funding. I'll hand that over to President Minot. So to the question around how many staff MNBC has, we have just over 300 staff members working across the province on various projects, programs. Just to put this into perspective around other Métis governments, we are about on par with what Métis Nation Saskatchewan has in comparison to what Manitoba Métis Federation has. They have over 1,400 employees across the province. I'm not familiar with the number of employees in Alberta, but I just wanted to give you a sense so you can see that we are on par and on the low end around our Métis public service. In terms of perceived challenges, recognizing where things were heading economically, I wasn't, and also our board of directors were not just waiting to see what happened. So we have had conversations at the board level and at a staff level. I've actually established an efficiency task force internally to actively ensure MNBC is looking at our processes, the way that our funding is being utilized to make sure that our communities can touch, see, and feel the experiences or the outcomes of the projects. And so a huge centralization push has been made so that we are ensuring that if there are key areas such as communications, events planning, government and strategic partnerships, that we are centralizing those functions so that we are not adding bodies just for the sake of adding bodies. We're also going through an efficiency review across MNBC in terms of our staffing levels, how we're utilizing our employees and making sure, again, that they are making the biggest impact. So that is in process as well. So we have a number of things that we're looking at. We are not standing still. We want to, talking about transparency, talking about financial prudence, we are doing all of those things to ensure that we are expending our funding in the best way possible so that we don't see layoffs at MNBC, so we don't feel a major impact on programs and services, that we're opening up funding where we can to ensure that we can continue our service levels because we know the impacts directly on citizens with our programs. And so we want to ensure that the best value for dollars is what's on the table. We also just, I know there was some conversation around our financial policies. We did recently approve our financial policies. We have various processes that folks need to go through, our staff leads have to go through for funding approvals. So there are checks and balances that are in place to ensure, again, we are getting a good value and strong outcomes for every dollar spent.
Thank you, CEO Trudeau. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the resolution?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker, just wanting to provide President Minot with the opportunity to speak to the funding as well. And perhaps what I will say is we recognize that we need to create own source revenue. We need to be utilizing our dollars in our housing accord in a way where we are nation building. So there was a pause for us to review that program to ensure that we are looking at how we're nation building, how we are creating wealth within Métis Nation, British Columbia. And so that did go forward to the board. And so perhaps I will pass that over to President Minot.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me that some of the questions could be answered by President Minot. President Minot, please respond if you.
Thank you, Colette. Yeah, on the response on the community initiatives to help with some of the construction and renovations in each of the offices that was originally proposed. Colette got into some of it in regards to trying to build up our own government, our own housing, our own infrastructure. Right now, with that program, what we were doing, we were putting money into other structures that would never belong to us, that would never belong to the community. So we feel in the long run that their program we would be taken away from our own people. We believe in building infrastructure for our people, using these dollars directly to support MNBC citizens and communities. And the way we feel that we can do that best going forward is to build, invest within our communities, invest within, some land purchases or anything that we can build revenue from. So that is one of the main reasons why we wanted to actually close that program down. We haven't outright closed it down at this time. We are still looking at doing some minor repairs and renovations for some of the communities in the future, but we just don't know at what dollar amount that's going to be at this time, especially with the new transitions, with the tariffs, the new government coming in. We need to really watch the way we spend them dollars. We got to make sure that our MNBC citizens and our communities and MNBC itself benefits from them dollars more than they have, more than other companies that own these buildings that we're renting. We feel that a lot of the money that we're putting into those buildings is not cost sufficient for our citizens or our communities. I think we can utilize them dollars in other ways where we can make revenue out of them to be able to help us in the future. This is going to take time going forward, but we feel it's more beneficial, and this will help our citizens and our communities in the long runs to ensure that we build up our capacity and everything that we're doing with those dollars has to come back to us. We can't be still handing out those kind of dollars and not benefiting from it. After a couple of years and the community ends up moving out and finding a desert space, we just invested $100,000 into a build that we'll never own or we'll never be able to prosper from. So that was one of the main reasons why we did it. And one of the main reason was the economy right now, the tariffs coming in, the new government's coming in. We really got to watch our dollars, make sure they're spent in a good way. As you guys all know, we are responsible to all our citizens and all our communities on where our dollars go, and we just feel this is the most responsible way of utilizing those dollars that we have available.
Thank you, President Minot. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to Resolution 5?
Yes, I also want to speak to this resolution. That wasn't on the resolution, that was on the question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the one comment that I heard President Byrd put in there is, how can the communities help us with this? How can they help us to be able to access dollars for the future for our communities going forward? I believe one way we are going to need help and will be very beneficial to communities. We need your input. We need to know, we need signatures from your community members, from your board of directors, from, the citizens that are registered with MNBC, even self-identified citizens that you guys service. We need to know the dollars that you need to keep your programs going. We need to be able to get support. We need to be able to take this documentation to some of these proposals we're writing, some of these conversations we're having with provincial, federal government, other agencies. We need support from our communities. When we go into those meetings, a lot of it's done on, our stats that we have available. but none of it's really done on the actual communication from the communities. So if we had letters and signatures drawn up, you know, if you guys even put together a letter in each community on the programs that you would like to support or moving forward for us to support to be able to find the dollars for you, we would definitely strengthen our argument if we had those letters with all those signatures of the community members right across the province. And I'm asking each and every community to do this, to send them off to MNBC, send those signatures to us, and let us know the help that we can provide for you and the arguments we can make at the national and federal provincial and federal level. I think this will go a long way in the future to try to access funding for each of our communities. So if it shows that our communities are in need and they need the support from our government, then that gives us a lot more to argue with, more weapons to go into those meetings with to support our communities going forward.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any further hands. So what I might suggest then, if too bad we don't have Jeff Crozier here, he would sure call question, I'm sure by now.
Question.
I'm hearing it. Thank you. We will go to the vote. This requires a majority, and we will go by our roll call vote for this. So, Nicole, when you're ready, and just to remind everyone, just because it's been a bit since we read through the resolution, just a reminder that passing this resolution means rescinding the one that had been passed, I believe it was in March of 2023, the one that had been forwarded by Cowichan Valley Métis Nation. Just so everyone's clear on the ramifications or the consequences of the vote one way or the other. And so I'll turn it over to Nicole for the roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So in alphabetical order, Dylan Adam.
Opposed.
Tom Adams.
Opposed.
David Allard.
In favor.
Melanie Allard.
Opposed.
Rob Anderson.
Opposed.
Danielle Bergevin.
Opposed.
Caitlin Bird.
Opposed.
Joy Bremner.
Opposed.
Zev Brewer.
Opposed.
Carmen Carrier.
Opposed.
Bernadette Chaboyer.
Opposed.
Alana Copeland.
Opposed.
Nicole Corson.
In favor.
Madeline Crozier.
Opposed.
Louis DeJager.
Opposed.
Sylvia DeRoche.
Opposed.
Cheryl Dodman.
My community says opposed.
Okay, Jamie Lee Keith.
In favor.
Alicia Fernando.
Opposed.
Deb Fisher.
Opposed.
Paulette Flamond.
Opposed.
Rainey Gervais.
Opposed.
Dean Gladue.
Opposed.
Feb Goulet.
Opposed.
Thank you. June Graham.
Opposed.
Patrick Harriet.
Opposed.
Susie Hooper.
Opposed.
Travis Jobin.
Opposed.
Anthony Carrillo.
Opposed.
Alan Lavallee.
Opposed.
Tyler Massey.
Opposed.
Betty Ann McDonnell.
Abstain.
Okay, Walter Minot.
Opposed.
Jan Ovens.
Opposed.
Callum Robinson.
In favor.
Mert Servatius.
Opposed.
Thank you. Lisa Shepherd.
Opposed.
Zelda Hunt.
Opposed.
Joy Sundin.
Opposed.
Marlene Swears.
Well, since it's going to be out there again, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Pixie Wells.
I agree with you, Marlene. In favor.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? Seeing none. I don't have an accurate count, but I definitely have more nays than ayes, so the motion is defeated.
Thank you very much. And by my count, it was 34 in favor, 6 in favor, 34 opposed, 1 abstention. So resolution 5 does not pass. I want to thank everyone. We are at the conclusion of our agenda. I want to thank everyone again. As always, at these meetings, the discussion was heartfelt, it was collegial, and I think a lot of good discussion occurred this weekend. I don't believe we were able to get Senator Lucier. So just before we adjourn, hopefully we can have one of our MNGA members provide a closing prayer. And before we do that, before the prayer, I might suggest we look for a mover and a seconder to adjourn to the next MNGA, which my recollection, and I stand to be correct, I believe it's the 30th, 31st of May, and 1st of June. I'm
May I have a
nods that
few
those
words
are the
before
dates.
we adjourn?
Yes, and I will turn it over to our president for a few concluding remarks, and then I'll look for my mover and seconder.
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Dave, for being here for us again and chairing this meeting, and you did an amazing job. Thank you very much on behalf of all of MNBC. Also, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here and taking your time this weekend to make decisions that are so important to our nation. This is why our governance structure is so important going forward and in the past is we've given the voice to, all of our leaders that have put us in the place that we are here today. And just so you all know that MNBC sees the importance of our communities. Our communities are the most important part of our governance structure going forward, and will continue to be that way. We will try to make sure that we represent our citizens and our communities in the best manner that we possibly can going forward. And we will also make sure that we always take your ideas and your considerations into our meetings, into our thoughts, to assure that we are making the best decisions that are put forward amongst us to be able to decide the best we feel for our communities and our citizens. One of the things I'd like to mention is we had some great meetings in Victoria this last week. We got to meet with our premier. We got to meet with both the Conservative Party, the NDP party. And, we had some great meetings and some great support for our nation going forward. I believe that, our leadership, our senior leadership, our board of directors are going to be fighting hard to assure that we are going to feel the least amount of impact as possible with these tariffs coming in, with these changes of government that might happen here in the next couple of months. We will continue to fight. We'll continue to open those doors and make sure that MNBC is represented at all levels of government to assure that we fight for our Section 35 rights. One of the major parties in Victoria made one of the comments, which I was a little bit surprised about, was they looked at us and said, "You guys should be the government for BC," which is a very good compliment coming from our provincial leaders. But we will continue to fight, and we will continue to fight hard on behalf of MNBC and our communities. We will continue to include our communities in all these structures. Our governance structure is one of the most important structure that we have out there, and that includes all our community leaders, all our community members. To be able to get your voice at this level and hear your concerns is so valuable to our nation going forward. Without your voice and without your opinions coming forward, we cannot grow as a nation. We cannot thrive as a nation on our own. So we need to get together. We need to gather together whenever we can. We need to be able to come up with these new ideas, come up with these new assertions. We might not be able to agree on everything, but that's why our political platforms are so important. You know, if we all agreed on everything, we would never be able to move forward in the manner that we have been in the last few years. I think we've made a lot of years in regards to our governance, in regards to MNBC's inclusion in all levels of government, and we will continue to make those strides going forward. With your help and with your support, I believe MNBC will just be stronger and stronger as we go forward. And I really, really believe that MNBC has a bright future. The citizens of MNBC have a bright future. And with your leadership, I think there's nothing that we can't stop doing. So please keep helping us. Please keep supporting each other. Keep supporting your local citizens, your provincial government, also your communities. And we look forward to having these conversations throughout the year, throughout our whole term, and throughout the history of MNBC. And again, thank you so much. And I am so proud of each and every one of our members, each and one of our presidents for being out there and voicing their opinion the way you have in the past and in the future. Without you, we would not be here. We would not be sitting here at this platform. As everybody knows that my family's been involved in a lot of Métis politics for a lot of years. I've never seen the Métis Nation this strong in my life, ever in history. That's one thing that we have to be proud of. And we would never be here if it wasn't for each and every one of you and every one of our members. So I say today, this is a proud day for MNBC and our citizens, our board of directors, and our government. Moving forward is the best initiative that we can push for, and the continued support of each other moving forward will just make us stronger. Again, thank you guys so much for everything you do, and you guys are all appreciated by your government and by your communities.
Thank you very much for those words. And I want to thank both Nicole and Judith here for all their assistance this weekend. It's been much appreciated. It makes my job so much easier, and it's much appreciated. I'm going to turn it over to President Keith to close us out in a good way, and then we'll go to adjourn.
Am I okay to start?
Please go ahead.
Creator, thank you for this time together. Thank you for the opportunity to come together as a nation and make decisions. And while these discussions can be tense, we remember that as we exit this meeting, we are all in this together. We are all one nation, one people, and we ask that you strengthen us and our communities so that we may have the capacity to really reach the full breadth that our ancestors envisioned when they fought for our rights initially at our conception as a nation. Hi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Keith. If I can have a mover and a seconder for an adjournment. I see Director Harriet to move.
I so move.
Thank you. And I saw Director Lallet seconding. Thank you. So we will look for unanimous consent. Any objection to adjourning to the summer MNGA? And I see Mert shaking her head this way. It's no objection there, that's for sure. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy what's left of your Sunday, and we'll see you in a few months. Bye.
Thank you.